Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. In this Ask the Expert session, we will be tackling your questions relating to the topic of digitally transforming an essential part of your workforce, of your organization, and of course, we mean the Firstline Workforce. We'll be following up on the session led by Mark Cruz and Christina Bear, where they offered us a dynamic overview of the Firstline work opportunity, and where we've heard about the insights of the insights into the role and the impact that Firstline workers have on the organization. They've also shared with us an overview of the technology that empowers Firstline workers, along with some exciting product updates and some inspiring stories from our customers about how they've transformed themselves. So how to best engage with us and our amazing panel of experts for today? You can absolutely use the chat to ask the questions that you will find in the where you can ask your questions directly. Questions will appear to all attendees once they've been approved by our wonderful moderators, and you can upvote your favorite questions with a good thumbs up. Experts will answer the questions verbally, and we will also have some questions answered over chat. We will absolutely try to tackle every single question, but there might be some things that will be left over. Experts will provide resources at the end, so you can actually help yourselves as well to tackle some of the questions that you may have. So before we really get going, I wanted to tackle a couple of things around the etiquette. Now, this session may be recorded, so that's something to keep in mind. And to help our lovely moderators, please do not spam or put anything inappropriate in there. Although we're not in the same physical space, we are all connected, and I promise to behave myself if you behave yourself. And just we have our Microsoft Code of Conduct for you to review. I'm sure you've seen it as well. And I'm just going to put it up on the screen as well, so you'll have an opportunity to test your speed reading skills as well. Awesome. Okay, now let's meet our panel of experts. So firstly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Irina Parsina, and I'm a Senior Program Manager in the Teams Engineering organization. I'm here with you today to share some of the insights from working directly with customers when it comes to enabling their Firstline workers. You can ask me any questions around Firstline worker best practices or potentially building out solutions on Microsoft Teams for your Firstline organization. We also have the pleasure of having with us today James Ellis, who is a technical architect for Firstline devices. James, welcome to this Ask the Expert session, and tell us a little bit about what sort of questions you'd love to get from attendees today.
Thank you, Irina. I was really hoping to get some questions around devices. So maybe what kind of devices would Walkietalkie work on? What kind of licensing would require for the use of that kind of nature around devices?
Perfect. Thank you so much. We also have with us a fellow expert, Mayank Verma. Mayank is a director in Microsoft 365 product marketing organization, and he is here with us today to share some of his expertise. Good morning, Mayank. Please share with us what sort of questions our attendees can and should direct to you.
Good morning, all, and hello from Seattle. Really excited to be joining this panel at 5 a.m. in Seattle, and really looking forward to answering questions on Microsoft 365, on how you're using Microsoft 365 and Teams to enable and empower your first-line employees, also known as the front line of your organization. And the questions can be spanning across collaboration, communications, devices, security. So you can ask me on strategy, on the product, on roadmap. We made a whole bunch of exciting announcements this week, so looking forward to the questions. Thank you. Back to you, Irina.
Thank you, Mayank. Welcome. Super excited to see what questions come our way. I'm also delighted to say that we're joined today by Lindsay Gardner. Lindsay is a product marketing manager. Lindsay, a very warm welcome to you. Please tell us what sort of questions you'd love to get from our attendees.
Hi, Irina. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to be part of this discussion, and I'm really looking forward to questions around the key trends or priority needs that firstline workers face in today's workplace. And like Mike, any discussions or questions around the type of technology and kind of strategic value that Microsoft 365 can provide that maps to these priority needs.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And last but not least, definitely not least with us, we have Daniel Hidalgo. Daniel is our Firstline Worker Product Marketing Manager for the Microsoft 365 suite of products. Daniel, hello. Would you like to share with our attendees your area of expertise and what sort of questions you'd love to tackle today?
Thank you so much, Irina. Good morning, afternoon, and good evening, everyone. You can ask me about the importance of investing in the Firstline Worker category, kind of thought leadership type stuff. I am not as technical as James or Irina, but I am the expert on our value proposition, our offers available in market, and the value on products such as Teams, Power Platform, and Security and Compliance aimed at Firstline Workers. Back to you, Irina.
Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate that. So one of the things I'm going to just put up a summary of our experts that we have today, and just a little reminder around what sort of questions you can post to us and we'll try and tackle on the call live today. So to kick things off, I just very much like to, I'm actually gonna ask Mayank maybe to share some of the key pain points that the Firstline organization, the Firstline workforce has, and also just give us a little bit of an overview as to why it might be a good idea and what benefits can a customer expect by tackling those pain points when it comes to Firstline Worker enablement. Over to you, Mayank.
Great, thanks, Irina, and thanks for the question. It's these are very unique times right now, with the global pandemic that's been going on, and the fact that we suddenly, this is what we hear from our customers, like all of a sudden we became remote and had to really rely on tools to stay connected. With the Firstline workforce, the problem becomes even more interesting because this is the workforce that has traditionally not been served very well by technology, and are using manual processes to get their work done. We all know that the workforce, mostly the Firstline employees, are shift-based, and they have relied heavily on manual processes to get organized in their shifts. And also like how they communicate with each other or with folks and their colleagues back at the headquarter locations. So what we are hearing from customers right now, and what is really important and driving the adoption and the usage for Firstline technologies, is in 3 different categories of needs. Number one is the need for secure communications, like making sure that everybody in an organization, right from the information worker to the Firstline workers, are connected on one single secure platform, and Microsoft 365 enables you to do just that using Teams as a communication tool. The second thing that we are seeing customers talk about is how do we actually get processes like shifts and task management built into a system of engagement for these Firstline workers and connect back to whatever is a system of record that is being used by organizations, which could be a workforce management solutions like, for example, Kronos or Amion or Blue Yonder. And with Microsoft 365 and the integrations we have in Teams, it enables you to start automating some of these workforce management processes. And the last thing that is really on top of our customers' minds is enabling a line of business applications to be brought in right into these digital tools through a whole range of devices that James just alluded to. And that is something that we are seeing happening, both using line of business apps that are the traditional apps which are coming into the systems of engagement using Teams, or even using a Power Platform within Microsoft Teams, and enabling these low-code apps to be deployed at scale and really rapidly for the Firstline workers to use and get productive, especially in these times when everybody is so distributed and disconnected. So I think those are the 3 key things we are hearing on the needs for technologies within Microsoft 365. So Irina, back to you.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much for sharing that. So we have our chats really, the questions are really lighting up. So it's really brilliant to see those. I think I have a really kind of delving deeper into what you've just shared, Mayank. There's a question that came up around how would one define digital transformation in the lens of the Firstline worker or in general? Perhaps it's a question that Daniel can tackle, and then anybody else. I'm sure everybody's got a view on this. But Daniel, how about you go ahead and tell us your thoughts around the definition of digital transformation through the lens of the Firstline worker and in general? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to tackle this question. And I have two main comments about this one. The first one is that people typically think of digital transformation only for the information worker space. The first-line worker space has been overlooked in the past. And in this world post-COVID, organizations have actually understood that if first-line workers are in fact essential workers, because when the pandemic was going on, essential workers were the only ones that could go to work, and they kept us safe and they kept the economy moving. So digital transformation has to be focused for the entire organization, not just information workers. But there are obviously levels of digitally transforming an organization, and we typically focus on 5 core needs for that first-line worker. The first one is obviously communicating and collaborating. For this part of the workforce, it's essential. But then you can digitally transform even further to connect them and connect the entire organization in a more secure fashion. So I would leave it at that with saying that digital transformation is in fact essential. We need to include everyone in the organization to provide them with the tools to be successful, because in the end of the day, it is going to make the organization more effective, and it's going to make the workers themselves much more engaged. Back to you, Irina.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Daniel, for sharing your insights there. We have a lot of questions and a lot of positive feedback about the walkie-talkie capabilities. I'd love to ask James the question around walkie-talkie and devices for this type of capability. James, are you happy to pick up that question for us?
Yes, I'd be happy to take that.
Perfect. Thank you, James. Go for it.
So for what is the exact question?
The question was just in general around the devices and the walkie-talkie capabilities. So if you could just tell us your thoughts on this and just share us some of the insights that we'd like to share over Ignite with our customers.
So Walkietalkie is available in the Microsoft Teams. It's an app, and it will work on any Android device supporting Android 5.0 and up. And it is not yet available on iOS, and it's not disclosed on the app yet, but it is a component of the roadmap. You can manage these devices with Intune and AirWatch. Back to you, Irene.
Perfect. Thank you, James, so much. We also actually have a very important question, which I can't believe hasn't been asked and we haven't tackled yet, but it's a question that I'd love Lindsay to tackle if she's happy with it. And it's just basically the definition of first-line worker. I know Mike touched on it, but I'd love to hear a little bit more depth around what your thoughts, what first-line worker actually means and what we mean when we say that. Over to you, Lindsay.
Yes, that's a very important question. Glad we're tackling that up front. So first-line worker, we call them the first line, and we've coined this term because they're really the first point of contact between an organization and the world it serves. So the customers, the services they provide. And so, first-line workers, in terms of the impact and importance that they play for a business and organization, they're the first ones to engage with customers and represent your brand and to see your services and your products in action. They are also on the front lines and can provide a rich source of insights of what's taking place with customers, in real-time business. And so first-line workers are also, when we think about, the roles that make up this segment of the workforce, they're typically either service-based or task-based workers. And so what we mean by that is service-based. Those are typically the face of the organization. They are engaging with customers. They could be a customer service rep, a cashier, a store clerk. But they are often engaging with customers and representing the brand. When we also classify first-line workers into task-based, those are kind of the heart of the organization. So they're activity-driven. Maybe they're in the stock room, they're on the supply chain, they're in manufacturing. And so when you think about first-line workforce into these two categories of the type of work that they do, that's an important distinction. Another important distinction to understand kind of the profile of these workers is they're also shift-based workers. So in addition to them being assigned and kind of running their day and their schedule through task activities, they're also shift-based. And so when you think about it in the lens of these employees being time-centric and task-centric, activity-centric, that makes it all more important to have the right tools and technology and processes in place to ensure that they are as efficient and productive as they can be. But I would love to also hear others' interpretation of kind of what makes up a first line worker too, and digital transformation in the lens of the first line worker. Because I think it's a great discussion to have.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay, so much for this in-depth answer and sharing your thoughts with our attendees. I have there's a lot of really good questions that I know our lovely moderators are tackling as well. But I wanted to, perhaps there's a question that came up around manufacturing and Power Platform in general, and I'd love for Daniel to tackle that question if that's okay. So the question, I don't know if you noted it, Daniel, was around in manufacturing, there are many users for essentially Power Apps on the shop floor and the factory floor, but in terms of licensing and licensing thousands of hourly workers, is there any other way for them to get connected, etc.? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know you have a lot of experience in this field.
Great, thank you. Yes, I would firstly say that we are seeing this scenario more and more in connecting those line of business applications or creating your own Power Apps for your first line workers. We now have an offer in place that is Microsoft 365 F3, which goes for a list price of $10 per user per month, which includes seated value for Power Platform. If you want value that is beyond that seated value of Power Platform, there is in fact a promotion that if you use Power Apps within Teams on mobile or on desktop, you can get a very, very steep discount. And lastly, we are always iterating on this one, trying to provide the most cost-effective solutions, but that is an ongoing strategy. Back to you, Irina.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Mayank, I noticed that you've already replied to the question around who typically drives this sort of transformation initiatives, whether it's driven by IT or business decision makers. I'd love for you to maybe expand a little bit on that and share with us indeed your thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Irina. And as I mentioned in the start, with these unique times right now, we are seeing a lot of demand being driven by IT as well for connectivity, because with all the systems and processes being disrupted, it is really important to have a basic communication infrastructure set up across the headquarters or the knowledge workers along with the first line workers. But outside of that, there's a pretty significant demand that comes from the business decision makers. So it can range from, I know we are talking about manufacturing and some of the questions going on, but in manufacturing, as an example, we are seeing a lot of demand coming for remote machine maintenance, or in retail scenarios, which are really lighting up right now, things like, for example, curbside pickup. So there's a whole bunch of new initiatives which are going on, which are extremely driven by the business decision makers. And the last point that I would like to highlight is something that is even bigger than this or spanning across BDMs is this element of culture, and making sure that the company and the organization, it could be a company, it could be a public sector organization. Really the culture of that organization is really important across all their employees. And making sure that in times of needs, employees are able to connect, and then there is a communication channel that exists top down to get the information out becomes really important. And also being able to recognize the contributions of different workers through simple rewards and recognitions kinds of capabilities. So for example, we have a feature within Teams called Praise. And what we've launched this week at Ignite is this notion of custom praise, where you can actually do some custom branding and praise someone just as a pat on the back for maybe a good job done or a good demonstration of teamwork, which all attributes to this notion of the culture of the broader organization. And that is something that we even see coming down sometimes from the C levels of the company. So definitely just wrapping up the question, Arina, a lot driven by the business decision makers, including the C-levels of the company. And of course, like IT is super important, super critical in getting the foundation right of security, compliance, and making sure that everybody in the organization is connected to the same communication tool that is being used across the organization. Thank you. Back to you.
Brilliant, thanks. I love the praise capabilities, and I know a lot of my customers also love those. Perhaps a question to James. I've seen a couple of questions pop up around bring your own device strategy and what can our customers do when it comes to empowering a large population and having devices. Is this something that you'd like to tackle maybe, James, today? Just some best practices around different device management approaches that our customers can take.
Yes, take that.
Thanks, James.
So you still have the ability of bringing your own device, obviously with the ability of mobile application management policies, which will allow you to still surround and protect your corporate data apps without the possibility or the needing to manage the actual device, which a lot of people really like that feature. So you still do have that ability to let your first-line workforce use their own device and still protect that corporate data that might be transpiring in that device. So it is a possibility to do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, James. I really appreciate it. So we have a couple more questions. I can see our moderators are doing a fantastic job of tackling these. I'm going to pick maybe on one. I know we've shared some really inspiring case studies from our customers that have been transformed or are transforming their first-line population with Microsoft 365 products. Perhaps a question to Mayank and then Lindsay and Daniel. Really, I'll start with Mayank with some of the probably most inspiring use case that comes to his mind, how our customers are using Microsoft 365 suite of products to transform their first-line workforce.
And there's a lot. This is a super exciting question. I just responded back with a link to a blog that we published this week at Ignite with a whole range of customer stories. I'm going to name a few, and then I think we can even do a round robin because there's so many. But I want to make sure that the audience knows that there is the blog link in the chat that you should definitely follow on Microsoft Tech Community with the latest customer stories. Just this week, we for example showed how Honeywell is using the RealWare products at the US factories. It was actually shown at the keynote at Ignite yesterday and going on today as well on enabling like these remote operations using the RealWare device running with Microsoft 365 technologies for first line. We also had another example showcasing how Walkietalkie is being used with Suffolk Construction in the US. We just announced the general availability of 3 new device partners, the Samsung Xcover Pro, which is a ruggedized mobile device, along with Klein and Blue Parrot. And the Suffolk Construction case study just talks about how this company is using Walkietalkie in Teams, along with the Samsung Xcover Pro device. And one more that is super important and very relevant in these times is how Alcoa is using Microsoft 365 and shifts in Teams to manage their shift management at their factories in Iceland. And one of the quotes that sticks with me from that customer testimonial is how they moved from a 8-hour shift to a 12-hour shift just within 3 business days, something which would not have been possible without the usage of Microsoft 365 and Teams. So a lot of compelling case studies. We have a whole bunch more. We published case studies with Office Depot, and there's a whole range of them. But I would highly encourage you to look at the blog, and we've got some really good assets, both video assets as well as published case studies with details on deployment and the sponsorship. I know that was an important question as well. Like, is it coming from IT or the line of business? So we have a lot of those details that I would highly encourage that you should go and take a read. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Daniel, Lindsay, is there a particular inspiring case study or use case or a customer example that you'd love to share that has that you just love to share with the attendees? I think Daniel is desperate to share the case study, so over to you, Daniel.
Awesome. Yes, I would mention two that are already live in our website, and I will post the link to the Microsoft 365 for Firstline website. One is IKEA, and the second one is Lowe's. Lowe's is a retailer that managed to use Power Platform to empower their Firstline workers to be able to be much more productive and effective. And those are two really, really cool stories. In addition to another video that's sort of a compilation of many customers and how they managed business continuity during unprecedented times. And it's just very, very inspiring to see how they were very laser focused on their mission and how we were able to help them keep going. Thanks, Irina.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I know we're almost closing our session, so what I'd love to do is maybe do a quick round robin and make sure that if I would ask you, so Lindsay, perhaps we'll start with you, anything that you absolutely wanted to share with our attendees today. I know you've also been keeping an eye on any questions, so over to you, Lindsay, for some final thoughts and comments and anything else you might want to share.
Yeah, mine is really quick and brief, and it's really just to advise you to think of your Firstline transformation not as a separate program or an afterthought of your kind of holistic organizational initiatives. Firstline empowerment really needs to be part of your all-up organizational empowerment in your all-up organizational transformation. And I think that the greater business value and impact that you can achieve when you think about the Firstline workers as a whole of your digital initiatives is truly compelling. So that would be my best practice.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lindsay, for that. Perhaps James, if I could ask you to share any last thoughts, any comments you might have, anything else that you feel like you'd love to tackle in the for our audience today.
I'm just really excited about everything in the Firstline workforce right now and all the devices and the products that we're releasing to help make everyone during these really tough times more efficient and continuing on being able to work. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, James. That's a great point. In fact, it's been really fantastic to see how our customers, especially in these tough times, are leveraging the technology to really manage their way through the challenges. Mayank, over to you for some of your final thoughts, last comments, anything else you might want to share, pearls of wisdom.
Yeah. Now I would probably just add, building on like what James said, that and this is no surprise to anyone that. If you just look at like any country, any part of the world right now, it is pretty clear to all that the Firstline workforce, whether it's the Firstline workforce in commercial businesses or even if it's first responders, are the ones who are actually contributing to the economic progress that is going on right now across the world. And if I just look back the last couple of years. This is also the segment that has also been the most underserved by digital transformation or digital tools and IT. So what I would probably just leave everyone in this group with is just imagine if you have all the right tools and right technologies available to this group, the throughput and the output and the productivity for the company, for society could just get maximized, right? Like we don't even know like what that maximization would look like, but just with these minimal tools and manual processes, this group of workers has been able to accomplish so much, and these times are a testament to what has been going on. And I think our goal right now at Microsoft is to make sure that we are adding more value, really understanding how workers in different industries conduct their jobs, what kind of workflows they participate in, and we bring in some of those workflows and features into a product set to make sure that we are empowering everybody to achieve more. Yeah, thanks, Irina. Back to you.
Huge thank you, Mayank, for sharing your thoughts on this. Lastly, from our line of experts, we do have Daniel. So Daniel, any last thoughts, comments, feedback you'd just love to share with our attendees?
Thanks, Irina. I'll be super quick because I know that we have 1 minute. The last thing I would say is I would challenge you, IT pros and IT decision makers, on leaning in and trying to understand the first-line workforce that has typically been sort of separate from the headquarters and from the interests of IT. And I can guarantee you that they are running manual processes. They are running consumer applications such as WhatsApp to communicate and collaborate. And I would just start there, trying to be ethnographers and understand what pain points they're having and try to push for providing them with tools that can make them more successful and more connected. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. On this note, actually, this is what a fantastic sentence to finish our session on. So this has been the Ask the Experts session. Thank you, everybody, for posting your questions and participating in this session. A huge thank you to our panel of experts today and for engaging in a lively discussion. There are some things that I wanted to leave you with in terms of key resources that you could go and check out with some great content to help you on your journey to digitally transforming your first-line workers. Thank you very much.